No matter how hard we try, there's a truth that hurts in silence. Nothing entertains us like it used to. Have you noticed how gray the world seems lately? The things that used to make us laugh until we lost our breath or made us completely forget about time now seem distant, lifeless. Hobbies, moments of joy, even the achievements that should fill us with pride seem to have lost their luster, leaving only that bitter taste of, that's all. Perhaps you've felt this in small moments. That movie you were looking forward to watching, but which in the end left you with a feeling of emptiness. Or that song you used to listen to over and over again, but which now seems to be just a background sound. Perhaps this is an echo of something bigger, of a disconnection that we can't explain, but which affects us deeply. And that's when the question begins to arise, why does this happen? Have we changed so much that we've forgotten how to enjoy the simple things? Or has the world changed and dragged us along with it? Are we so tired of dealing with pressures and responsibilities that our ability to feel joy has gradually diminished without us realizing it? Some say we're just distracted. That modern life, with its thousands of daily stimuli, has taken us away from what really matters. That we spend so much time scrolling through endless feeds and looking for instant entertainment that we've forgotten how to get lost in something that truly engages us. But is that all there is to it? Carl Jung said that throughout our lives we build emotional armor to protect ourselves. However, this armor also isolates us from what connects us with others and with ourselves. Could it be that, in an attempt to avoid suffering, we end up disconnecting from our own joy? Today we're going to explore these questions. We're going to understand what happens when the world loses its colors, when fun seems to slip through our fingers, and why this may be more common than we imagine. But we're also going to talk about how, in the midst of this emptiness, there are ways to find meaning, pleasure, and a joy that depends on nothing but ourselves. After all, however distant it may seem, there is a part of us that still knows how to have fun, that still carries within it the ability to marvel at the world. And maybe, just maybe, this emptiness we feel is not an end, but an invitation to rediscover who we really are. Do you remember how easy it was to have fun when you were a child? Anything, no matter how simple, could be turned into an adventure. A puddle of water was an entire ocean, a piece of paper, a spaceship. The world seemed infinite, full of possibilities, and fun was everywhere. All you needed was imagination and desire. But then we grew up, and little by little, what once seemed magical began to turn into routine. School taught us to be disciplined. Work taught us to be productive. And the world around us taught us that there's no room for play, that you have to be serious, focused, and mature. Time passed, and without us realizing it, the lightness of childhood became more and more distant. The philosopher Carl Jung said that the main task of childhood is to solidify the ego, while that of adulthood is to learn to overcome it. But how can we overcome something that has become so rigid? The child in us, the one who knew how to have fun, who found joy in small things, is still there. But it's trapped, suffocated by the responsibilities, goals, and expectations that surround us. And then, one day, you look back and think, when did life get so dull? Maybe it was little by little, so slowly that you didn't even notice. Or maybe it was at a specific moment when you gave up on a dream, lost someone important, or started to feel overwhelmed by your day-to-day obligations. The truth is that as time goes by, we seem to lose the ability to enchant ourselves. What used to be an afternoon playing in the yard is now just a space on the calendar. What used to be a magical sunset is now just another end of the day. It's as if we've lost the ability to see the extraordinary in simple things, because we're too busy, too tired, or perhaps too anesthetized. And then comes the inevitable question, have we changed so much that we can no longer enjoy ourselves? Has the weight of adult life taken us so far away from the lightness we used to be able to feel that we no longer know how to find it? Or has the world around us become grayer, more mechanical, and dragged us down with it? Why this emptiness? And then, in this emptiness, we end up looking for substitutes. We try to fill the time with distractions, with things that promise immediate enjoyment, but which, deep down, only deepen the feeling of disconnection. Because, as easy as it may seem to entertain ourselves, true pleasure, the kind that transforms us and fills us with life, seems increasingly difficult to find. And that brings us to an important question. Are we looking for fun in the wrong places? We live surrounded by stimuli and distractions. All the time, something calls out to us, promising us immediate relief, a dose of pleasure. But why doesn't any of it really satisfy us? Perhaps it's time to take a closer look at this illusion we've created. Is this content making you reflect and sparking new ways of thinking? If so, click the Super Thanks button just below the video. It's a way to say thank you and help me bring more content like this to those who need to reflect on life. Have you ever found yourself endlessly scrolling through your phone's feed, going from video to video, hoping to find something that really captures you? And in the end, realized that you'd spent hours there feeling absolutely nothing? It's almost ironic. We live in the age with the most entertainment options in history. But at the same time, we've never been so bored. Everything around us promises instant fun. Social networks, games, short videos, incessant notifications. But deep down, none of it seems to have the same flavor as before. Things come and go too quickly. What should entertain us often only makes us more tired and, paradoxically, even more bored. This feeling is no coincidence. Studies have shown that excessive stimulation is directly linked to a loss of pleasure. Our brains, bombarded all the time, can no longer concentrate deeply on anything. What's worse, we start to get used to it. Switching tabs, scrolling down, changing the subject, everything becomes automatic. The expectation of finding something really fun turns into an endless cycle of dissatisfaction. And here's the scary thing. Modern entertainment doesn't require you to connect with it. You can just sit back, passively, letting the stimuli roll in. Unlike childhood play, where you had to create, imagine, and interact, now entertainment is ready-made, chewed up, and delivered to you on a screen. It's comfortable and empty at the same time. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, creator of the concept of flow, explained that true fun and fulfillment come from states of deep immersion, when we give ourselves completely to an activity. But how do we achieve this state in a world that bombards us with distractions every second? Perhaps you've already asked yourself, why doesn't anything seem to amuse me like it used to? The answer can be painful. Perhaps it's not just the fault of modern distractions, but also the way we've learned to deal with them. We are so used to quick and easy rewards that we gradually lose the ability to devote ourselves to something for longer. What requires effort, even if it brings real pleasure in the end, starts to seem like too much work. How many times have you started something you really liked, but abandoned it halfway through? A reading you left half finished? A creative project you never finished? All this because it seemed easier to open your cell phone and look for some quick entertainment, even if it was superficial. The great irony of it all is that, deep down, we know that these distractions don't fill the void, and yet we're still stuck with them. It's as if we're in an endless cycle of searching, always hoping that the next notification, the next video, or the next post will finally bring us what we're looking for. But if distractions aren't the answer, what is? Is the problem just the world around us, or are we missing something deeper inside? Throughout life, we learn to protect ourselves. Pain, frustration, and loss are part of any journey, and our natural instinct is to create defenses. It's as if we put on layer after layer of emotional armor, believing that this will prevent us from suffering. And in part, it works. But this protection also comes at a price. This armor, which should protect us, often isolates us. It blocks pain, it's true, but it also disconnects us from what makes us human. The ability to feel, to connect deeply with others, and to experience genuine joy. We become so preoccupied with avoiding suffering that we end up avoiding life. Have you ever stopped to think how many times you found yourself saying whatever? Not because you didn't really care, but because it was easier to pretend you didn't. It's an unconscious defense. It's an unconscious defense. We don't allow ourselves to create expectations because the disappointment seems unbearable. We don't let ourselves get carried away because that makes us vulnerable. Over time, we get used to living in this neutrality. Carl Jung said that the human psyche is like a balance that seeks equilibrium between opposites. When we protect ourselves too much, we deny the vulnerable side of ourselves, the side that allows us to feel deeply, even if that includes the risk of pain. This denial, he says, can disconnect us from our unconscious, where vital forces such as creativity, desire, and the ability to marvel at the world reside. How many times have you looked at something that should be a source of joy, but you couldn't feel anything. It's as if we were anesthetized. This indifference doesn't come on suddenly. It's built up little by little, like a survival mechanism. But over time, what was supposed to be a protection becomes a prison. And the irony is that the more we shield ourselves, the more life pressures us. It's as if the unconscious finds ways to remind us that something is wrong. Perhaps this explains that feeling of emptiness that insists on appearing, even when everything seems fine. In Stoicism, there is a central principle: to accept what we cannot control. This philosophy suggests that we should cultivate a kind of indifference towards external things, focusing on what really matters. But Jung warns us against taking this to the extreme. If we ignore what bothers us, if we stifle our emotions, we run the risk of disconnecting not only from the world, but from ourselves. And then life becomes automatic. You get up, do your chores, achieve your goals, but everything seems mechanical. The things you used to love no longer have the same flavor. And yet we carry on, stuck in a routine that seems to have no way out. But are we destined to live like this? Is the solution simply to accept this neutrality as part of adult life? Or is there a way to break through this armor, to rediscover what was left behind? Perhaps what we need is not to protect ourselves even more, but to learn to reconnect with what we have lost. There is a way back, but it requires courage, the courage to feel again. If there's one truth that's hard to accept, it's this. Breaking through the armor we've created isn't easy. It's there for a reason. It was built over time, layer by layer, to protect us from pain and frustrations that seemed unbearable. But at the same time, this armor deprives us of what makes life truly meaningful. Connection, joy, the ability to be enchanted by the world. And that's the great irony of life. The same things that protect us from pain also keep us from pleasure. Armor makes us resistant, but at the same time, it prevents us from feeling the warmth of the sun or the lightness of the rain. We live protected, but also distant. So how do we begin to break it down? How do we rediscover what we've lost? The first step is to recognize that this emptiness is not a personal failing. It doesn't mean that we're broken or that there's something wrong with us. This emptiness, however uncomfortable, can be an invitation. Jung said that moments of apathy and disconnection are often signs from the unconscious, asking us to look inwards, to confront parts of ourselves that have been left behind. Maybe it's that passion we abandoned because it seemed impractical. Maybe it's the desire to slow down and live more simply, suffocated by the rush of the modern world. Or maybe it's our inner child, the one who knew how to find joy in the little things, who laughed until her face hurt and found magic where no one else could. Reconnecting with this takes courage. The courage to slow down, to say no to easy distractions that promise immediate relief but never deliver anything lasting. And above all, the courage to feel. Because in feeling, we become vulnerable again, but we also become alive. And like any healing process, this takes time. Just as a physical wound doesn't heal overnight, the psyche needs time to reorganize itself. There are no shortcuts. There are no guarantees that it will be easy. But there are ways. Perhaps the first is simply to stop, breathe, noticing the things around us. The simple act of slowing down can be revolutionary in a world that forces us to run all the time. And in those small moments of pause, we begin to notice things that previously went unnoticed. The smell of fresh coffee, the soft light of late afternoon, the sound of a hearty laugh. Jung used to compare the cycles of the human psyche to the seasons. The internal winter, this emptiness, this apathy, is not permanent. It is a moment of pause, reflection, and preparation. Just as the snow-covered ground holds the potential to generate life in spring, our inner world also carries seeds, waiting for the right moment to blossom. Perhaps you feel like you've been in this winter for too long. That spring will never come. But it does. It always does. Not as a sudden burst of joy, but as small signs. A genuine connection, a new perspective, a spark of curiosity. Albert Camus said, "In the middle of winter, I finally discovered that inside me there was an invincible summer. That summer is the part of us that still carries the capacity to marvel, to take pleasure in simple things, to find joy where before there was only routine. But in order to access it, we need to allow ourselves. It's not just about waiting, it's about preparing the ground, reframing what was once routine, looking at simple things with new eyes, Because perhaps the charm we miss isn't lost, but just hidden under the layers of protection we've created. And in the end, the road back is not about recovering what was lost, but about creating something new. It's not about going back to who we were, but about discovering who we can be now. Life isn't just about joy or pain. It's made up of the space in between, where we find our humanity. And perhaps it is there, in that space, that the real charm lies. And remember, knowledge is the path to true freedom. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.